Hi, over the last couple of weeks I've been working on rewriting the entire employee AI, improved the paving system from the last devlog, and got a basic web page up and running for the game. In the last devlog I added a screen shake whenever something is built or bulldozed. I guess it's safe to say most of you didn't like that much, and honestly, I've got to agree with you. Thankfully, it's very easy to turn off, and I'll be adding an option to turn it back on for those that actually like the effect. I've got some other ideas for how to make these systems feel a bit more impactful, so keep an eye out for those. So with that sorted, I decided that before I do anything else, I need to sort out the employee AI. While the system I had before worked, it wasn't very stable and definitely wasn't built to a widely used standard. At the time I wrote it, I had a much smaller following and had not really written an actual NPC AI before, so I implemented something without much research. What I built was similar to what you'd see in The Sims. Tasks are created and added to a list to be carried out in order. The system I built worked, but created all kinds of problems and wasn't very scalable at all, so I scrapped it and have gone for something a lot more standard: behavior trees. Behavior trees, to put them simply, contain nodes that make decisions and nodes that describe behaviors. There are a bunch of different standard node types, such as sequence nodes that step through the behaviors attached to them, and selector nodes that choose a behavior based on a condition. The tree starts at the root and traverses based on the conditions at each node. There's a video in the description that describes this all in a lot more detail, but that's the general idea. I started by planning out how a basic lumberjack behavior tree would look, before removing all the unnecessary code from the employee classes. I created the 4 initial base classes for different nodes in the tree and got to work implementing them. To check that these basic systems worked before adding more complex behaviors, I created a really basic tree that checks how tired an employee is. If below a threshold, an alert will appear. If above a threshold, a different alert would appear. The threshold is chosen by the player as a policy. That worked for employees above the threshold. Now if I set their tiredness to 0, it also works for below the threshold. So I moved on to actually implementing the lumberjack behaviors, like chopping down trees and sleeping. After just a few hours of using the new system, I got the lumberjacks back to where they were in terms of behavior. So next, it was the turn of the mechanics. I wanted to give the player some more options for controlling mechanic behavior, so I added a policy to the game which allows you to choose whether mechanics repair the machines in the order selected or in order of lowest health. The mechanic AI will just check this policy whenever a route is made to the next machine. I designed their basic behavior tree on paper before implementing their behaviors and outlining their tree in code. As it's a tree and you can't really display code in a tree form, I just indented each level of the tree in the code to make it easier to read. And with that, the mechanics were also up and running, repairing machines in the order the player chose. Alongside all of this, I also made the pathfinding run on a separate thread. Before, the pathfinding code would block the main thread the game runs on, and as pathfinding is quite intensive, this could cause stalls, especially if there are multiple routes calculating at once. So now, these calculations are made separately, and the behavior trees either wait or continue their current job until those calculations are complete, which is much better for performance. I then built a new PC over the weekend, which was pretty fun. I put the specs in the description for anyone that's interested. I've also spent some time running at the woods, just getting some sun each day while I work on the game and uni projects. The weather has been amazing here recently, and the wood's pretty empty, so making the most of that as much as I legally can. So, when I was making the paving system in the last video, it somehow didn't occur to me to use masks instead of drawing 47 different sprites for each path type. How this works is there are now 4 layers to each path. A path shape, a grass texture, a shadow texture, and the path design itself, so a single dirt sprite for example. First, I separated out the dirt sprites I made last time to create those 4 layers. Next, I added separate sprite renderers for the different layers and a mask for the sprite shape. The mask essentially tells Unity what part of the underlying sprite, in this case a dirt texture, to show and what parts to hide. There are still 47 distinct shapes just to maximize the variation, but these can be reused for every path type. Thankfully, once I had changed the code to accommodate for this, it worked wonderfully, so I decided to draw another paving tile to celebrate. I made a stone brick path, which might be useful for decoration. With that in the game, this is how it looked, and I'm actually super pleased with how it works with the mask system. Especially glad I didn't have to draw 47 variations too. While I was working on a rewrite of some of the factory systems, which I'll cover in the next video, I decided to get a domain name for the game's website. Obviously, lumbermill.com was taken, so I went for lumbermillgame.com, which I think works well. Although I don't have time to build a complete website right now, I decided it would be a good idea to at least get a simple page up and running. So for that, I used GitHub Pages. I had to create a GitHub repo to hold the site's files and enable the website on the repo. After a bit of fiddling with settings, I got a very simple test page hosted on lumbermillgame.com. I then repurposed some old code for a previous single page site I made to create a basic landing page. It just has the game's logo, a wishlist link, and the 1 year of development video, which I'll soon replace with a trailer. This will do for now, and I'll probably build something a bit more substantial later on, but at least there's something there to be seen. The game is available for wishlisting on Steam, so if you'd like it when it comes out, there's a link to the Steam page in the description. Special thanks for this video, of course, go to my patrons. In particular, I'd like to thank Alex Ismail, Cameron E, Echt Capivol, Chris Naismith, Kieran Holroyd, Ethan Hart, Julian Nova, Pep Patrolman, Sheshpesh, TJ Baker, and Phil. That's all for this video. If you liked it and want to see more, remember to subscribe. Cheers for watching.